So here we go then, here's an overview of all the camera gear that I carry on Arwen. Not all of it goes with me every trip. It will depend on what kind of story I'm doing that day, what kind of shots I want to get. So quite often it's only minimal stuff I take with me. On the longer trips, especially where I'm camp cruising, then I take the whole lot. Here are the main cameras I carry: a Panasonic Lumix, a Hero Go 5, a Hero 2, an SJ Cam, and then a DB cam recorder as well. I carry 3 or 4 little action cameras so that I can actually film the same shot or sequence but from different angles, and that makes for more imaginative editing later on. This is the wireless SJ4000, and I tend to use this one for mounting on my floaty platform, which I'll show you later, or for putting on the yard so that when the sail is being raised you get the downward shot into the boat. Wireless controlled from my mobile phone, which means I can switch it on and off, thereby saving the batteries. The SJ Cam cost about £60. It shoots 30 frames a second in 1080p, and it's got a 12 megapixel sensor. It's got a 1.5 inch screen as well. It uses all the GoPro mount. Waterproof down to about 30 meters, and it's got a reasonable picture quality. The pictures are a bit saturated, so you've always got to color coordinate them back in editing. This is the DB Power HD 1080p camera, very similar to an SJ Cam but a lot cheaper. Got this one for around about £30, and again I tend to use this one on places where there's a risk that I might lose it. Picture quality is fairly good. It's again a little bit saturated, so you have to tone it down in post-editing production, but it's a solid little camera. Short battery life, tends to chew through batteries. This is my GoPro Hero 2, the very first action camera I bought many years ago, of huge sentimental value. It's been around the world with me on many of my expeditions and trips. Comes with its own floaty back door, and by today's standards the Hero 2 now is quite old and rather bulkier than the new GoPros, and of course doesn't have things like voice control. This one isn't Wi-Fi activated either. Has a tough protected waterproof case. It can do quite a few photographic type things, photo burst, time lapse. It's basic. There are some disadvantages to the Hero 2. It does fog up, especially if there's temperature differences between air and the water that it's operating in. So you have to insert these little anti-fog strips, which can be quite a nuisance. If it's in its waterproof casing, of course, the sound is very muffled, very poor quality sound. And of course the biggest disadvantage is it has no back screen, so you can't actually see whether or not you've got the framing of your shots right. Films 1080p and you can alter the various frame rates within it. The picture quality is absolutely outstanding on this camera. Moving on then, here we have the new Hero 5, and it has only in the last 2 weeks been replaced and updated by the new Hero 6. So this is the Hero 5 Black. I really like this camera. It is a significant update from the Hero 2 that I've been used to. First of all, it is completely waterproof. You don't need that protective case. It does come with a protective case. This is the black structure around it, which keeps it shockproof should you drop it. The Hero 5 Black is tiny. It's a good point and shoot camera in most conditions. You can download an app to your phone, so it is Wi-Fi controlled. It will do photo burst, camera and video, and another great thing about it is it's voice command controlled. So there is a pre-programmed set of voice controls which will switch it on, switch it off, and select the various functions that you want. It has a variety of wide angle settings, from super wide right down to quite narrow, which again is a change from some of the other GoPro cameras. It's really good for immersive shooting if you wear it correctly. So, for example, wearing it on your head, you can film what your hands are doing. There are some disadvantages I've found to the Hero 5. First of all, I think poor battery life. I get around about 30 minutes. Another thing about this is it is not a distance camera. So if you're filming horizons or coastlines as you sail past them, not the camera to do it. This is one for getting really close to the action. All right. Another disadvantage, it has some fiddly controls on the back, especially if your hands are cold or if you're wearing gloves. It makes it difficult to select on the menus at the back. There is no zoom. I find that the sound quality on this camera is poor. I don't know how others find it if they're using it, but for me, it isn't good sound quality. There's always a slight distant hum in the background with it. In saying all of those disadvantages, I do have to say that the actual film quality is outstanding. This is an action cam which is great for putting on a selfie stick and then being able to stick it out from the side of the boat or being able to point it down towards the bows. It has buttons on it so that you can film upside down and it will flip the film for you. It's a really versatile camera. A day's filming out on the boat can really chomp through batteries, so I carry at least 4 or 5 batteries for each of my action cameras. And one tip I'd give you that I picked up from someone else only a few weeks ago on YouTube is to actually number your batteries. In that way you know which ones you've used. Here we have my old Lumix Panasonic camera. It's a ×20 zoom on it. Really impressive little piece of kit. I have another one which is a more up-to-date Sony Cybershot version, but I don't take that on the boat. That's for when I go travelling. This one films in AVI. It's an 18 megapixel photo. It's got an outstanding battery life on it. The sound quality when I'm videoing is really good, and I tend to use this one if I'm doing face-to-face vlogs. It's got lots of intelligent auto controls. It's a really good point and shoot camera, and you can get some really good pre-settings on it for nighttime, for sunsets, for sunrises. The big disadvantage, of course, is it is not waterproof, and so it does need this waterproof pouch. And the thing I like about this one is that you can actually unscrew the lens cover so that if I wanted to get a good zoom shot, the lens will zoom out through the opening and get the shot. I can then switch it off, it'll zoom back in, I can screw the cap back on, but the bulk of the camera is still then fairly waterproofed from splashes and things like that. The last camera that I carry with me all the time and is the one that I tend to forget to use, and that is of course my humble mobile phone. This is a Moto G5 and I found that actually the video camera on it is pretty good. Some of the footage you've seen in this video has been filmed with this, so I'm beginning to use it more and more. So now we come to the other bits and pieces that I carry on board Arwen with me. First of all is the PowerMonkey Xtreme. This is a huge solar panel battery charger, but this one has been with me on a lot of expeditions. The thing I like about this is you can waterproof it. It will charge an iPad and my phone several times over. It will charge all of my cameras at least once or twice. Of course it comes with its own solar panel, so what I can do is when I'm out sailing I can just set it out there on one of the thwarts and it's quite happy in the sunshine recharging itself. So on those extended 3-4 day trips when I may not actually get anywhere near a plug to do any charging, I know that this will back up whatever electronics I've got. It comes with a whole bag of different connections, so it'll fit all the Apple products and all the Android products. It'll fit GoPro products. It's a really useful piece of kit and I'm really pleased I invested in it. I carry an array of different clamps and mounts. I don't necessarily take them all on every single trip. I tend to pick and choose which ones I think will be most useful. So let's take a look and run through some of them. This is the car clamp suction mount. It has a pressure pad which you force down onto the surface you want it to stick it to. And I tend to use that on the car if I'm filming, launching, retrieving or driving along as a start of an introduction to a film. I found that actually it doesn't stick very well on the paintwork anywhere inside Arwen. This is one of my strap mounts. I carry 2 of them and you can strap it around the mast or around the mizzen mast and it will absolutely hold firm, and you can mount the camera to get those all important boat length shots or looking in the cockpit so you can see what action's going on. Here are the GoPro mountings, the screws and the little units which slot into the things which attach to the base pads. These are sticky pads. Sometimes I suddenly discover that I want to try and mount the camera somewhere, but of course I haven't got the clamp which will do it, or I haven't got a sticky pad in that position. I try not to use too many of them because I think they ruin the look of Arwen. This was one of the very first clamps I made. It's a normal woodworking clamp, and I bought a little attachment, taped, drilled it on, screwed it, taped it firmly. I have the rope again to tie it as a little security tether. This is what replaced my homemade clamp. This one is very useful. It attaches to the coaming, I can attach to the tiller, I can attach it to the thwart. It's got a very bendy neck, so you can adjust it to the exact position that you want it. I found that if I attached it anywhere in the boat, it was transmitting noise up through it and into the camera, so every single knock, every squeak, every sound came across on the commentary, which was irritating. So you can see what I've done is I've covered it in 3mm neoprene tape, filling those sounds. I have a number of different sized tripods and selfie sticks. I don't take all of them on every trip. I tend to choose which ones I think will be most useful. I have 3 different sized tripods, a very small Joby one, slightly bigger one, and then a cheap Amazon tripod which extends up to about 4 foot in height. This is my Handheld Floatie. If I go swimming, it's hollow, it's completely floatable, so you can put the GoPro at the top, and if you let it go, it'll just bob to the surface. This is the main selfie stick that I use. It's an extendable arm. You can get it into multiple positions. Another advantage is that if you unscrew the base, it actually holds a little tripod inside, which you can actually use inside the boat or on if you're out walking on rocks and things. So it's a versatile little piece of kit, doesn't take up a lot of space, very rugged, has withstood the test of time. You can actually mount the tripod into the base of the handle, so you can get it to act like a slightly taller tripod, but I found that it tended to be fairly unsteady. This is a 4 foot extending selfie stick, absolutely fantastic for taking those shots where you want to get a shot of the water and the bow cutting through the water, or you want to put it over the back of the transom and film the rudder, if you want to put it out to the side and film you as a side shot in the boat. I've added a tether to it. Again, I bought this off eBay for a couple of pounds. I can put my hand through a little loop at the bottom, which means that if I actually drop it while I'm extending it out over the side, I'm not actually going to lose it. I tend to take with me fairly frequently the head strap and also the chesty strap. The head strap is very good for giving you those shots, first person view, where you can see people's hands in the shot, so doing anchoring, your hand on the tiller. The chesty shot is also very good to give you those shots where slightly more is in view, your hands doing things, pulling up anchors, lowering anchors, pulling up sails, lowering sails. Here's what I call the sundries. Here are the anti-fog inserts for the GoPro Hero 2 and the SJ cams, and then I carry a couple of spare micro SD cards. This is my homemade time-lapse, an egg timer from IKEA, on which I've stuck one of the GoPro mounting pads, and if you put it to time-lapse photography, you can take photos at 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, whatever interval you want. And here is Floatie Cam. I got this idea off a GoPro channel done by someone called Kyle Martin, and he came up with a brilliant platform for getting the GoPro out onto the waves so that it can film your boat going towards it, sailing away from it, and I've included 1 or 2 shots here to show you how it works. It's made of plastic plumber's pipe, of one of those long banana type swim floats that you give for children who are learning to swim in swimming pools. It works. I've found that you've got to use it on a light wind day. It tends to bounce a little bit, real choppy waves. And the other thing is it'll invert itself very, very quickly if you're not careful. So what I do is I attach some weights underneath on that little string which runs across, and that helps stabilize it. The weights are on about a 4 foot long piece of rope, and it just helps it anchor into the waves a bit better. And talking of taking shots outside of the boat, I have invested in a small selfie drone. This is the Xyron Explorer Mini. It gives me a flight time of around about 30 minutes. It's very good for selfies. It's got a 13 megapixel camera, and it films in 1080p footage at about 30 frames a second. It's pretty nimble. It's got a maximum distance. I can get to around about 80 meters away without it losing and dropping out of Wi-Fi. It has 1 or 2 functions which are quite useful. Circle me, so you can program it to just film and circle around you. Follow me is where it will latch on to you if you set it up, and it will follow wherever you go as well. It's a pretty tough little drone. It's got excellent GPS stabilization on it, and I use it with my smartphone. It's lightweight, it's got a small pack size, it's simple and easy to fly. What I will say is one of the major disadvantages of this drone is the aftercare service. I have to tell you, their aftercare service is useless. 6 months later, I have had absolutely no contact. I have tried via Facebook, email, forum group, Xyron forum group, nothing. Not a single reply to countless emails, countless Facebook, Twitter. I've tried everything. And therefore I would say to people, actually don't buy it. As good as it is, and it really is a fantastic little piece of kit, just on the basis that you can't get to talk to anyone from Xyron anywhere in Europe, just makes it useless, because you are going to get knocks with it. And finally, this is the last bit of kit that I carry on board Arwen, and this has been my most recent investment. It is the Zoom H1 handheld microphone. It records in stereo. It has made my sound recording so much crisper, sharper, with less background noise and interference. I use it with a little lapel mic. I can attach it to my little Gorilla Joby tripod so that it's freestanding when I'm out on a beach, things like that. I can use it for picking up those ambient sounds, the water against the boat, seagulls overhead, even the wind. It will record MP4 or WAV files, and I can get 3 hours worth of recordings onto a memory card with no problem at all. And there we have it. That's all the kit that I tend to carry. As I said at the very start, I don't tend to take it on every single trip. I pick and choose which bits I want. But each of the things I've shown you has its place on board Arwen for certain particular functions. I hope that's been useful. If you like what you see, then please click subscribe. Come join me on my voyages with Arwen.